Welcome to another episode of the Music and Therapy Podcast. I am your host, Keana W. Mitchell, relationship coach, trauma-informed guide, and someone who believes deeply in the power of healing through emotional safety, music, and connection. Today we're going to be talking about something that quietly corrodes relationships from the inside out, and that is resentment. It's the slow simmer, the emotional residue, the unspoken tension that can trigger and linger long after the conflict ends. But here's the truth. Resentment isn't permanent. It's a signal. And today, we'll learn how to listen to and release that signal and reclaim our emotional freedom. But let's talk about the last episode that we had with the Music and Therapy Podcast. Now, the last episode that aired, we talked about how to rebuild trust after betrayal. Some of the things we talked about were the importance of consistency over promises, how betrayal impacts the nervous system and emotional regulation, why emotional safety is the foundation of reconnection. One of the key takeaways was that trust is rebuilt through truth and not time alone. So when we listen to that old adage about time heals all wounds, that's not necessarily true when it comes to rebuilding trust after betrayal. Trust is rebuilt through truth, not time alone. So if you guys are interested to learn how to rebuild trust after betrayal, I want to encourage you to click the link in the show note to listen to the previous episode that we did on the Music and Therapy Podcast. And if you're unable to get to the link for whatever reason, you can always listen to the Music and Therapy Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and just make sure you click on the episode, How to Rebuild Trust After Betrayal. So what is resentment? Resentment is a natural emotional response to perceived injustice, betrayal, or unmet needs. It often arises when we feel unheard, dismissed, or chronically invalidated. Dr. John Gottman, he's one of my favorite researchers in the area of psychology and couples therapy. He's also one of the most respected relationship psychologists of our time. He kind of describes resentment as a relationship cancer. In his research, he found that couples who allow resentment to build over time are far more likely to experience emotional withdrawal, contempt, and eventual separation. He emphasizes that resentment is often a result of repeated injuries or repeated emotional injuries that go unacknowledged or unresolved. So I guess in this aspect of it, if you think about it, imagine you had a broken arm and you never fixed it and you kept trying to use it. You're going to do a lot of damage to your arm. So it's the same when it comes to our relationships and our marriages. If we have an unresolved issue or a problem and we keep ignoring it and we keep trying to move on like nothing's wrong and we don't acknowledge or resolve it, then we're definitely doing harm to our relationship, just like you would do harm to your arm if you broke it and never got it fixed. So that's why resentment is the result of repeated emotional injuries that go unresolved or unacknowledged. There are two types of resentment, and one type of resentment is called just regular resentment, and the other one is chronic resentment. So we're going to break down what's the difference between resentment and chronic resentment. So when we talk about resentment, resentment is a temporary emotional reaction to a specific event. So maybe your husband forgot your birthday. Guys, I'm not going to pick at you. Women forget birthdays too. So maybe your wife forgot your birthday, and you're feeling unappreciated, unloved, because you always remember their birthday, but they never remember yours. So in that type of situation, you could build resentment, like, oh, so that apparently I'm not important enough for them to remember my birthday, or whatever it may be. So an example might be you feel resentment and you feel resentful when your partner forgets your birthday after a stressful week. So that would be an example of resentment. Now, chronic resentment is different. Chronic resentment is a persistent emotional state built from repeated unresolved hurts. So maybe if your spouse forgot your birthday one year, you might feel resentful. But if they forgot it the next year, and the next year, and the next year, and the next year, you might have developed chronic resentment because they're forgetting your birthday each year. and you're getting upset, and you're upset, and you're angry, and you're having that quote unquote temporary emotional reaction to a specific event over and over and over and over again. So that is how you can develop chronic resentment. An example of chronic resentment would be you've asked for emotional support for months from your spouse, but your partner continues to dismiss your feelings, and over time you stop asking and you start resenting. Dr. Gottman calls this negative sentiment override, a state where even neutral or positive interactions are interpreted through the lens of resentment. It's like wearing a resentment colored glasses because everything is tainted. So, in this situation, even if your spouse does something good for you, even if your partner does something kind, you're not going to see it because you're so full of resentment toward them for all the things that they've done that have led you to this point. So, that's why it's important to address resentment when you feel it and not let it go into a chronic state of resentment. I know that we talk about this a lot, but our bodies feel our emotional pain. So there are physical effects of chronic resentment. Holding on to resentment doesn't just affect your relationship, it affects your body. Studies show that chronic resentment can lead to elevated cortisol levels, which increase inflammation, suppress immune function, making you more susceptible to illnesses, increased risk of heart disease and high blood pressure, a disrupted sleep cycle and digestive issues, heightened anxiety, depression, and rumination. And rumination is like you just keep thinking the same thoughts in your head and you just can't keep them out. So, in short, resentment is not just emotional, it is psychological. Your body will keep the score if you continue to have chronic resentment. Now, I'm not going to say that you have to just avoid resentment and that you're never going to feel it because that will not be true. We are human. We feel anger, we feel frustration, we feel resentment, we feel sadness, we feel happy. Like all of these are normal emotions and it's okay to feel them. But when you feel resentment, it's important to have those conversations and to talk about it. And remember last month in the other podcast episodes, we talked about communication. So being able to have conversations that are difficult and talk about why you're feeling resentment instead of letting it like harbor inside of you and fester until it erupts into chronic resentment and it just erupts like a volcano is very important for you to have these conversations and deal with things when it happens. Now, I understand it is very hard to let go of resentment. Letting go of resentment feels hard because it gives us a sense of control. Letting go of resentment feels hard because it protects us from being vulnerable. Because instead of having that conversation with our spouse or our partner, we can just be resentful. We can just not say anything. We can say something like, well, they really love this. They would know how I felt, how I feel. Or if they really cared, they could tell I was mad. That's not how it works. You have to talk. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be open and communicate what is going on. And this is why letting go of resentment is really difficult, especially for individuals who have a hard time with confrontation or speaking up for themselves. This could be really difficult. So instead of saying something in that moment when something happens, they can just resent that person but they don't speak up and tell that person what they did wrong. And I'm just going to say there are times when your partner or spouse knows what they did wrong. Like an example, for example, if your partner forgot your birthday, yeah, they would figure out that's wrong. They would know, okay, I messed up, I screwed up on this one, I need to make it right. But then there are times when your partner honestly may not know what's going on. They may not be aware that they hurt you or that you're upset about something. And so that's why it's important to bring it up and let them know how you feel while this is going on and why you're starting to feel upset or hurt about something so that we can stop resentment before it even starts. Resentment is hard to let go of because it feels like justice, especially when there's no apology. So if someone does something and they don't apologize, you might feel justified to have resentment because they never said sorry even after you explained that they hurt you. So these are some of the reasons why letting go of resentment can be difficult. But here's the thing. Holding on to resentment doesn't protect you. It imprisons us. It keeps us tethered to the pain long after the moment has passed. So that's why one of the things that I think is very important when it comes to letting go of resentment is to forgive that person. So let me just be clear with this, okay? Forgiveness is not condoning what happened. It's not saying it's okay. It's saying I'm choosing to release this pain so I can be free. I like to tell people forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. It is absolutely for you. Because when we hold on to resentment, it can have emotional and physical effects on our body. And we don't need that. We don't want that. So, in order to release it, forgiveness is kind of like a cleanse. You forgive and you move on. Now, when I say move on, I'm not saying pretend nothing happened. No, that's not what I'm saying. Because if somebody has done something to hurt you, we definitely need to have that conversation. I'm not saying to just say, well, you know what, I'm going to forgive you. It's okay. No, 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 no. That's not how it works. Forgiving someone is not condoning what they did. So it's not saying it's okay. It's just saying I'm choosing to release this pain. Or more so, I'm choosing to forgive you for what you did to me. Even though you didn't apologize, you may not have been sorry, and you didn't deserve it, I am choosing to forgive you. Because when you forgive someone, then you let go of the resentment. When you forgive someone, your body does not feel the emotional effects of all the stress and tension and anger that you had built up inside you because you're so resentful. So forgiveness is actually for you and not for them. Guys, did you know you can forgive someone even if they never asked for it? Yeah, you can forgive someone if they never asked you for forgiveness. You can forgive someone even if they don't change, because forgiveness is about your healing and not their redemption. So they don't need to ask for forgiveness. They don't have to ask you to forgive them. You can do that without even needing their approval or acceptance of your forgiveness. So that's why it's nice to know when it comes to forgiveness and comes to healing and letting go of our emotional hurt and resentment, we can absolutely do this without the other person even being a part of that. So that's important to know. Dr. Fred Luskin, author of Forgive for Good, says, forgiveness is for you. It's the gift you give yourself to stop suffering. Forgiveness is a boundary. It says, I will not carry this pain into my future. So, what we're going to do at this point is walk through 5 trauma informed exercises to help you begin to release resentment. And the reason I want to do this is because it's not easy. I know this. All of us have felt hurt. All of us have been resentful about different things, especially if you have been married or have been in any type of relationship, short term, long term. We have some resentment. We have healing. We have things that we have to let go. So this is a good time to start. We don't have to start when we feel like we're ready to forgive someone. We can start now. And I want to say that forgiveness takes time. You cannot I want you to be kind. Don't blame yourself or don't be angry with yourself if you feel like you can't forgive someone at that moment. That is fine. Forgiveness is something that takes time. Forgiveness is something that you can build up to, and it doesn't have to happen all at once. For example, if your spouse did something, forgot your birthday, let's just go with that one. If they forgot your birthday and you are feeling resentful about it, you can forgive that person. But if you're not ready to forgive that person that day or the next day or the day before, you can do things like say, you know what, I am not going to think anything hateful about my spouse today, and let it go. Then the next day you can say, you know, I'm not going to bring up how they forgot my birthday every time I see them. Then the next day it could be something else. But you can work toward forgiving a person. Once you have those conversations and you talk to that person, you can work toward forgiving them even if they never ask. And maybe I'll do an episode about how we can work toward forgiving people and what those steps look like, what those steps are, and what we can do to begin the process of working toward forgiveness. But here are some exercises that are going to help you let go of resentment. Now, I try to give you guys a lot because I want you to be able to choose which exercises work for you and which exercises don't work. So the first exercise we're going to do is called Name the Hurt. Now, in this exercise, I want you to write down what happened. Be very specific. Write down what boundary was crossed, what need was unmet. Name the pain. Do that. And after you do that, I want you to put it aside. Think about it for a minute. And then I want you to think about how you were feeling. Because if we can identify how we're feeling and why we felt that way. That's the first step toward releasing it. We have to know what we're feeling in order to let it go. So name the hurt. Feel it, what was going on. Think about what happened, the boundary what was crossed, the needs that was unmet. It's very important for you to name it because this is the first step toward releasing that hurt. The second thing you can do is place one hand on your heart, one on your belly. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Say aloud, I am safe. I am allowed to let go. Repeat this daily to regulate your nervous system. And the reason this is important because sometimes when we have resentment, we can get anxious, we can get frustrated, we can get stressed, we can have anxiety. All these things can happen when we have chronic resentment or we're full of resentment and we're thinking about that person. So knowing how to regulate our nervous system is very important, and that's the way we can calm down so that we can begin to let go of the resentment. And we're not just letting go emotionally, we're letting it go from our bodies. And you are allowed to let go of that resentment. And it's important to let yourself know that you are safe and that it's okay for you to let go of that resentment. The next thing, or the next exercise we have is reframe the story. This one I like to do a lot. And in this exercise, I would do something like, you ask yourself, what did you learn from this experience? How did I grow? Now that doesn't erase the harm, but it gives you perspective on what went on. It makes you more aware, self-aware. Instead of being maybe resentful, you might say, you know what? I feel empathy for this person. I can see where they were coming from. I can see how they may have been hurt. I can see this or I can see that. Now, this doesn't mean that what they did was right. It doesn't mean that you have to just accept this and be like, you know, this is just them. This is what they do. No, that's not what it means. It helps you to expand your perspective and see it from someone else's point of view. And a part I love about this exercise, especially when I did this exercise, is when I ask myself, how did I grow? Because we cannot change the experience we just had. We cannot go back in time and stop bad thing from happening. But what we can do is ask ourselves, how did I grow from this situation? How did I grow from this experience? Now, when we talk about growth doesn't just happen when we do something. We can grow from the experience of other people. We can see how other people are. So, for example, if I see someone who is always being rude and who's always being unkind, I can grow from that experience by saying, okay, that's not who I want to grow up to be. That's not who I want to be. So I'm going to do something different. I'm going to make sure that I do this, that, or the other to be a different person. So we can grow from experiences, whether we are the person doing it or whether we are the person receiving it. So you can grow from different experiences. The next exercise, and I've tried this before, and this really works. This really works really well. I want you to write a letter to the person who hurt you. Say everything you need to say. Then burn it, shred it, or keep it. That's for you, not for them. And I absolutely love this exercise. It's funny, but I was doing this when I was a kid, like when I was 11 or 12, because I used to get really angry about different things. I think I had a bad temper. And so what I would do is I would write down all the things I wanted to tell that person. Anything I wanted to say that made me mad, I would write in my letter how they made me mad. I'd call them whatever names I wanted to call them. I would say all the mean things I wanted to say. And then after that, I would just tear it up and throw it in the trash. But I felt so much better. Guys, you do not believe how much better I felt. I felt better because I got a chance to release that anger and that frustration, and I didn't hurt one person. So, okay, so what I did was not a forgiveness letter because I did not do that. I just told you how I said mean things. But it worked as a child. It worked, and I didn't get angry with people. Well, I got angry, but I was able to find a productive way to release the anger. But in this situation, you can actually write a forgiveness letter. A forgiveness letter goes something like, you say, dear so-and-so, you tell them how they hurt you, you tell them what was said, what you needed to say, and then you can let them know you forgive them. And then you can burn that letter, shred it, or keep it. And it's up to you. Some people like to burn it. I think that would be good. I just tore my stuff up and threw it in the trash. Some people like to shred it. But then other people may want to keep it, right? Because when you keep it, you can go back and read it And then sometimes you can have a different perspective. You can grow from it. You might even feel empowered. Like, you know what? They did this and they did this to me, and I was able to let it go. I was able to forgive. So that might make you feel like, you know what? I'm stronger than I thought I was. I can do this. And if I can forgive that, then I can definitely get through this situation. So just depending on your motivation, your personality, and who you are, you may want to keep it instead of throwing it away. The last thing I want to encourage you to do, and this is what I do a lot of the times, I create a playlist of songs that help me feel, cry, and release. So you may want to do the same thing. Create a playlist of songs that can help you feel, that can help you cry, and release the resentment and frustration that you feel. Include tracks that move you emotionally and help you reconnect with your strength. And the reason I say that, music is helpful. I use music for when I want to relax, when I'm stressed, when I'm upset, when I'm angry. Music has that effect. It has that quality that can calm you down. So if you can create a playlist, maybe songs to let go of resentment or something like that, and you put down your top songs that help you relax, calm down, think differently, have a different perspective, feel empowered, feel your strength, then definitely go do that, because that can absolutely help you to begin to let go of resentment. It can absolutely help you. Now, another thing I want to tell you, Mel Robbins talks about this a lot in her book, The Let Them Theory. Just saying, let them, can be helpful in letting go of resentment. What you can do in this exercise is, right at the top, let them, and then number all the things that that person has done to you, right? After you do that, the second line can be, let me. And then write down all the things that you can do to better yourself, to let go of that resentment, how you can heal. Write all of that down, because when you do that, you're letting that person, when you say let them, you're releasing it. You're letting it go, because we can't control anyone else. We control ourselves. We can't control them. So let that person do whatever it is they're going to do. Let them do whatever they want. But let me, you may have like, let me have a conversation and let them know how they hurt me. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me do that. Because we are in control of our own actions. And sometimes I feel like we forget that sometimes and we feel powerless. But no, we're in control of our actions. So let that person do whatever they want, but let me heal. Let me do something different. Let me be better off than I was before. Let me do this, or whatever it is. So these are just some exercises that you guys can do to help you begin letting go of resentment. I know it's not going to be an easy process, and I know it's not going to happen at once, because if it did, we wouldn't have resentment, right? And we definitely would not have chronic resentment. But since it is a process, it is something that happens over time and gradually, I want to encourage you to give yourself grace. If you can go a day without thinking about resenting that person, or thinking evil thoughts or mad things about a person, that's a win. If the next day you're like, oh, this person gets my nerves, I can't stand them, they did this, they did that, okay, that's just a small setback, but then you can get back on track and move forward to releasing a lot of that resentment and anger, and move toward forgiveness for your emotional healing. Now, the song we're going to listen to this week is called Stronger, and it is by our official podcast artist, Emery Rose, and it's about a woman who has to let go of resentment and find her internal strength. Here is the song, Stronger.
You broke my heart, my spirit, my trust. You made me feel like I wasn't enough. You said some things that played with my mind, made me second guess if I was wasting my time. You thought the things you said, and you thought the things you did me feel like I was living in a daze. And every day I walked on eggshells, 'cause I didn't know when you were gonna yell. You thought the things you said, and you thought the things you did would destroy who I was, make me a shell of who I was. You thought the things you said, and you thought the things you did would tear down my self-esteem so that I didn't love me. But it only made me stronger, stronger. I didn't break, but I got stronger. Boy, you made me stronger, stronger. You didn't break me, I got stronger, stronger. I will never be that person again who chose to love you more than I love me. I will never be that person again who chose to love you more than I love me. But it only made me stronger, stronger. I didn't break, but I got stronger. Boy, you made me stronger, stronger. You didn't break me, I got stronger, stronger. But it only made me stronger, stronger. I didn't break, but I got stronger. Boy, you made me stronger, stronger. You didn't break me, I got stronger,
This week, I want you to practice conflict interruption and connection building. So, the assignment or your homework for this week is when you feel resentment rising, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, what am I really needing right now? Instead of reacting, pivot to connection. I'm feeling hurt. Can we talk about it? I need reassurance. Can you help me feel safe? Write down each time you do this and reflect on how this changes the dynamics. Resentment is heavy, but you don't have to carry it forever. You deserve relationships that feel safe, honest, and free. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing yourself, your peace, and your future. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Music and Therapy Podcast. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's ready to heal. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Healing is necessary, and your heart is worth protecting. Bye-bye.